Well, hello and welcome everyone to episode 15 of our digital Devos. My name is Robert. I'm the pastor of facilities and men's ministry here at In Focus Church, and I'm so excited to be together with you in this way. Today we're continuing to unpack Isaiah 53 from the Old Testament as Isaiah prophesied about the suffering servant being Jesus. And so we're going to take a look at Isaiah 53, verses 7 through 9. It says, "He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that before its shears is silent, so he opened not his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living, stricken for the transgression of my people. And they made his grave with the wicked and with a rich man in his death, although he had done no violence and there was no deceit in his mouth." Isaiah paints a contrast here to the sinful sheep who had been led astray in the previous verse, which is Isaiah 53:6, and it says that all we like sheep have gone astray, every one to his own way, and the Lord has laid upon him the iniquity of us all. So we have all turned to our own ways. We have all lived lives of our own making, void of the presence and the power of God and our obedience to him. So the righteous lamb, signified by the suffering servant, is led willfully to the sacrifice. Isaiah is applauding and directing the attention of his audience to the voluntary death of the suffering servant. This foreshadows the willful death of Christ, as John Calvin argues. If his death had not been voluntary, he would not have been regarded as having satisfied our disobedience. Just as Paul writes in Romans 5:19, "As by one man's disobedience all became sinners." And we see that in the book of Genesis, original sin, where Adam sinned against God, and so therefore we became sinners. So by one man's obedience, Jesus' obedience, many were made righteous. He also writes that Jesus became obedient unto death, even to death on the cross. And in Philippians 2:8, through Jesus' willful obedience to the Father to go to the cross, he is able to righteously fulfill what we could not. Calvin writes, "This was the reason of his silence at the judgment seat of Pilate, though he had a just defense to offer. For having become answerable for our guilt, he wished to submit silently to the sentence, that we might loudly glory in the righteousness of faith obtained through free grace." So the cross was not something that Jesus undertook begrudgingly. He did not put up a fight. He did not try to defend himself, though he was innocent of any charge. And see, my friend, if this was you and me, we would have lawyered up. We would have had a ready defense to expose the false accusations that were brought against us. But we see in Isaiah 53 that Jesus did not respond in this way. The amazing thing that Isaiah is trying to show, and Matthew picks up on his account of Jesus' trial, is that the servant willingly gives his life so that others may live. When we remember Jesus' death on the cross, we must remember that it is a life that was given freely. Jesus' life was not taken on the cross. It was given on the cross willingly and according to the will of the Father. Only a human life could substitute for the sins of humanity, and only a sinless human life could properly atone for the sins of people. The point made by Isaiah is that an animal cannot properly atone for sin, and an animal does not willingly give its life as an atonement. Just as human sin involves a willful action of disobedience, the willful active obedience of Christ secures the freedom from sin for the people of God. As Jesus was oppressed and afflicted and on our behalf, and as he willingly bore our sins to reconcile us back to God, let us loudly worship him as the suffering servant that took our place, for he is worthy of praise. So thank you for joining us today. Be sure to follow us on our social media platforms along with YouTube and our church website.